Okay. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the live stream. Hopefully you can hear me. If you can't, that's going to be a problem. So hi. Welcome. What are you guys doing in the chat? What are you guys doing? Oh my god. Hi, Jeff. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Thank you, everyone, for waiting. Hello, James. Hello, Phil's Violet. Hello, Jonathan. Hello, Zernicki. Hello. I've been having a rough time the last few days, but super glad I'm here. I'm glad you could be here, Jonathan. Hopefully we will help you have maybe a little bit of a better day today, at least. How to deal with kinks you don't like. Simple, isn't it? Sorry, I'm not comfortable with that, so I won't do it. I assume it's kind of about kink shaming in the kink community. Well, we will get into that, won't we? We will get into that. Exactly. Hello from London, UK. Welcome, Richard. Isn't it like, I want to say, let's see, it's 8, I think it's +8 from here. I used to have these time zones. Actually, don't I have the time zones in the description of this live stream? Oh, the current stream's bitrate is lower than recommended. What? What are you doing, YouTube? What? What's going on? Okay, sorry, give me a second. Let me... I'm not sure what's going on with the bit rate here. Why is it? Okay. I see if that makes things happier. Okay. YouTube says excellent condition now, so you must be okay. Welcome. Yeah, okay, I thought it is +8, and then I stopped doing the math because I saw that YouTube had a connection issue, so we solved that first. I was thinking it was like 1 or 2 a.m., so I was pretty close. Ghostbusters Afterlife. Listen, I don't even think I've seen the first Ghostbusters movie. I'm not sure what that says about, I don't know, my age or something. I know they made, they remade the Ghostbusters with all women, right? In like, what was it, like 2017 or something? And oh my, remember people getting so mad about that? That was ridiculous. Like that was like the whole era of like, they're replacing all the men in my superhero movies with women and I don't like it and I'm gonna make millions of dollars on YouTube by complaining about it. That was that era of YouTube. Because how dare they make thing with women now? So awful. I have no opinion about the movie otherwise. I've never seen it. I don't know if it's bad, good, or awful, or fine, or over budget, under budget, box office hit, flop. I don't know. All I remember is people got really mad about women being in it. Like, that was a whole era, wasn't it? That was a whole era. The audio's a little quiet. Are you sure? I have my volume on like actual max. That doesn't make sense. The remake wasn't good, but not because it was women, just no chemistry and the jokes were forced. Yeah, that's like the hard thing about comedy, especially trying to like remake a really famous comedy, is trying to live in those footsteps, I guess. And then like if you try too hard to make it funny, I think you end up failing. And then it just doesn't work, right? I definitely, like, I know the song from Ghostbusters that was really famous, but I don't know anything about, like, the franchise. Like, it was probably on in the background at some point when I was growing up, but I don't remember anything about it. Dogs are barking outside. Bandit got a haircut. She got a haircut yesterday. Oh my gosh. You guys want to hear about Bandit's haircut? If you guys want to hear a Bandit story, I can totally tell one. So, before we get too far into things, let me just say that the usual applies, right? 18 plus only. Please read the rules. They're down below. Because this is on YouTube, there are certain things that I can't necessarily get into, or also just because of my own experience. So while this is like a general viewer Q&A, you can ask any question you want, with some exceptions. That's what the rules and everything else are for. So if you have questions about like how to do medical play, how to do blood play, how to choke your boyfriend, whatever else, can't get into that here. Not either my area of expertise, nor is it something I think you can learn how to do over a chat on a live stream. So not going to answer questions about that in general. Please do not share any sort of medical information. Be really cautious if you decide to share your location, because these streams do stay up after they're live. So just remember that that means your location and your YouTube username, potentially your email account, are then connected on YouTube forever, and you may not want to have that information out there. So be mindful. And if you do have like a more beginner question, if you're newer to BDSM, please read the FAQ down below, because we have been doing these for several years now, and we do get questions that are asked pretty frequently. And so if you have a question about like, help, how do I tell my girlfriend I want to be submissive? Where can I buy a flogger? What books do you recommend for beginners? Like, all of those are answered in the FAQs below, and the full FAQ is also linked. If you want to read through everything, that's just going to give you a more detailed answer and links to resources that I can't necessarily provide when I'm talking, because Google / internet technology has not advanced such that my words can turn into a link. So if you want links to resources and things, that's going to be down below. Otherwise, feel free to ask whatever you like. And then there were just a few things that I wanted to talk about that were related to some things that had been on my channel kind of recently, and I wanted to go into them in more detail. So also, I want to know, just as a side thing, did you guys watch the new video with Pup Amp that I did, where we talked about like poly and DS and all of that fun stuff? If you did, what did you think about it? Did you like it? I am possibly going to be doing more collaboration stuff, not with Amp necessarily, but with people in general. I may be doing more collabs here in the next like coming weeks and months. They can be kind of hard to coordinate, but luckily like Amp and I are in the same time zone, so it made it pretty easy, and our schedules are both pretty flexible. But I haven't done a lot of interviews for a while, because I've noticed that they get kind of like average views usually, like for when I first post a video. But for long term, it's like people ask me questions about stuff all the time, and they're like, what about hypnosis? Is it safe to do like BDSM when you're pregnant? And I have interviews where I talk about that stuff. So that is where I get into those topics that I don't really discuss over live streams, because I don't have the expertise to do them, because I have done interviews with people that are medical professionals, people that are like pro doms, femdoms, all sorts of people that can help answer those questions that I can't, because I don't know what it's like to be pregnant and do BDSM. I've never had a child before. I don't know. I'm not a doctor either, for that matter. So if you guys don't know about it, definitely look up my interviews I've done in the past, because I do have a lot of like niche subjects on there: pony play, hypnosis, blood play, femdom. Femdom's not like niche, but you guys know what I mean, right? Like stuff that I wouldn't normally cover myself are in a lot of interviews, actually. So little bonus tip there if you want to check things out that you've been wondering about, and you're like, oh, does Evie have a video about this? And I probably do, but it may not be for me. It may be me doing an interview, right? All right, let me read some comments here, and then we'll get into sort of what I wanted to talk about, and then we'll ask and answer some questions. How about that? Ooh, Watermus888 says, "Hi Evie, I asked a question about rope bottoming last week, and I want to report that my scene was an amazing success. We're going to work on more ways to affirm my gender with rope in the future." That's awesome. Congrats. Oh my gosh. So amazing. Have fun. Stay safe. And thank you for the update. We love updates. I love when people come back and they're like, "Hey, I did the thing. This is what happened. This is how it went." I love hearing about, hopefully, your successes, but also something goes wrong. We're here to support. So, for sure, thank you for sharing. Definitely need to see the first before this one. Noted. I mean, I wouldn't. I know a lot of people have really suffered during COVID not being able to go to movies, and I get it. Like, I understand a lot of people really enjoy going to movies. It's a really good, common, vanilla date night. I get it. Before COVID, I would maybe see a movie once or twice a year in theaters, and it was almost always holidays with my family. Like, either between like Christmas and Thanksgiving, we would see a movie around that kind of part of the year because it was something we could all go and do together, and we didn't have to talk to each other to do it. So, movies were like something we would do around the holidays, but otherwise, like, I maybe see one other movie in theaters per year. So, not necessarily going to see this Ghostbusters movie in theaters, but I will be very interested to see when the YouTube movie review blogosphere catches up with this release, if anyone talks about it, because I think right now Dune has been so huge that I think everything's been Dune, which is awesome because from what I can tell, and I've read the first 3 Dune books, I am a fan of the series. Like, everyone that was involved on like a higher level of making the film was a fan of Dune as a book. Hans Zimmerman, who's the one that did the score, I believe. I've said that, I'm not 100% sure, but I'm pretty sure it's Hans Zimmerman did the score. And, like, he said that, like, it was always his dream to be able to write music for a Dune movie. And the director, obviously, was also very enthusiastic about having Dune as a movie. And so I think they got a good group of people to make it into a film. And so it seems like it went really well and it's popular. And who knows, maybe we're going to have, like, dozens of Dune movies now, because that's what Hollywood is like, I guess. And I know, like, especially the first Dune book is like this big, and so trying to adopt that entire book, it's like trying to adapt it's like trying to adapt the last 2 Harry Potter books into one movie, basically, because I think it's like, what, 900 pages or something, I think, or at least the last Harry Potter the last Harry Potter book into one film. And even then, they had to split it into 2 parts. I think that, from what I understand, I haven't watched the movie yet, but from what I've read in reviews about it, it seems like they stopped it at, like, kind of a moment where if you hadn't read the Dune books, you were like, that's it? What's happening? Like, and you realize it's like, there's not really a good place to, like, unless you're getting rid of a lot of plot points, to, like, make a really neat cut with, like, a super satisfying ending if you're, like, going in the exact book order, you know? Anyways, I am sure Ghostbusters will make the rounds, and Dune has just been, like, everybody's, like, big conversation piece, I feel like, for a little bit. Okay, people want Bandit updates, apparently. So, where is she? Where is the Bandit? She is asleep on her bed, so I will not disturb her because she is loving her life. Oh, by the way, so I am going to be doing an update to the stream. So next Friday, we're not going to be streaming because it's the day after American Thanksgiving, and so of course we are going to be off of live streaming for that day. But the next Friday after that, that's when we're starting our, like, Christmas holiday season live streams, so it's going to be all, like, Christmassy and everything else. So if you guys like this background and setup, you're gonna have to say goodbye to it for a little bit. But we are going to be updating the live stream setup and have some holiday things happening. I don't really have any set plans. I did want to ask, though, because I'm going to keep this backdrop because I like it, and it would be a pain in the butt to change it. So I'm not changing that backdrop, but I would like something for the other wall. that's right behind me right here. For the holidays, it's like temporary. And I don't know what I would put on that wall. Because it can also be something that's in the background when I'm filming videos too. Because I usually film like down there basically. So if you guys have ideas for what I should put on this like back wall area for like a holiday backdrop or decor, I don't know, like posters or like those like old school like vintage cutouts of like Rudolph and Santa Claus, like those sorts of things maybe. Or maybe a different backdrop. The area back there isn't really like wide enough to put a Christmas tree, and also my wall heater is back there too, and so I worry about having a plastic fake Christmas tree that close to a wall heater. So I don't think I'm gonna put the Christmas tree back there, because then it would also be like on top of my bed also, and that feels like a bad idea with ornaments with sharp things on them. So we're probably not gonna put a Christmas tree back there, but I want something for that wall kind of for the holidays, and I don't know what I want it to be. So let me know if you have any thoughts about that. Okay, so let's see. Oh, I should pop out the chat. That would probably make it easier to catch up with things. So this is what I am thinking. Oh, paper snowflakes. Good idea. That's a good idea. I hadn't thought about that actually. I don't think I've made paper snowflakes in like, I don't even know how long. Maybe like 10 years. It's been a long time. Maybe since I was in probably high school. Probably high school. Because I don't have computer paper. Like, I don't have a printer. I just don't think about it because I don't have, like, computer paper near me. I really want to watch the new video, but unfortunately haven't had time yet. Well, good news is it will be available for the future. I really liked it. Loved hearing about personal experiences from both of you. Haven't seen the video, but based on the topics in the title, I'm really excited about it. Yeah, we go over all of that. Not clickbait. It's just, it's all real. It's all in there. Different order than in the title, but it's all in there. Oh, an early showing? I mean, I guess they do matinees, right? I hadn't thought about that. Oh, go to the movies during the daytime. Such an interesting experience. I did that when I was a kid, though. Because they have like, during the summertime, I think they'd have, like, kids' movies that they would do during the earlier daytime for parents to bring their kids into the theater to have something to do. Because I lived in, like, places where there was really hot climate, and so during the summertime, it wasn't just like, let your kids play outside in 100-degree weather. Like, you wanted to have something to do, like, typically indoors to keep your kids occupied, and so we would sometimes go to the theater because they're air-conditioned and dark, and the opposite of being outside in July in the summertime. So that is something we would also do. So the thing that I wanted to talk about in relation to 1950s households and roleplay, because this was something that I was thinking about while I was writing the script for this, but not something I knew necessarily how to include in it. It was interesting because, I mean, I talk a lot about different controversial kinks, I guess. Like, I talk about, like, ABDL. I've talked about Sissies. I don't have a dedicated video on that, but it's come up a lot during, like, hot takes and during live streams and stuff. But I got, like, more of I don't want to call it negative because it has, like, it's, like, 99% likes, which I can see, but you guys can't see, I guess, because YouTube removed being able to see dislikes for some reason. So it has, like, a really good like to dislike ratio, but I got a lot of comments from people that were like, oh, this is, like, really disgusting, I don't like this, and this seems, like, really inappropriate considering the actual, like, history of the era. And, like, I thought about that, but, like, everything that I read when I was reading from people that are into this kink and from people I know that do this in real life, like, almost all of them universally said that it's about, like, recreating this, like, memory of the time period we have based on, like, media and movies and stuff like that, and wanting to go back to that simpler time that was represented in those media sources. And that's what I tried to kind of get at when I was talking about how it's not about literally recreating the time period. It's about, like, taking those, like, positive associations we have with that time period from our media and using that as an inspiration for your BDSM. And that's, like, I don't know how to say it, besides that, because like I don't know, when people do pirate roleplay, they don't like roleplay having scurvy and no teeth and like and you know, like literally having like amputated limbs usually. Like you roleplay being a pirate like you would see it in Pirates of the Caribbean. Like it's not historically accurate. Like most of our roleplay is not historically accurate either to the thing that it's based on or the time period it's from, and that's just sort of accepted that most kinks are anachronistic in some fashion. But I think in particular because of how, and for many ways, different people experienced the 1950s very differently. Different people have very strong and like polar opposite reactions to the idea of like role playing in the 50s. Because if usually, for example, you are especially an upper just or general middle class white person living in the suburbs, probably a lot more of a positive memory associated with that time period than like an urban person of color that is working class, dealing with either the struggle against Jim Crow or the struggle of like having to integrate into schools. Like obviously the memories of the time period are very different for different groups of people. But even that isn't necessarily like reflected in the media, I guess, which is what I think people tend to go back to. It's not like, wow, I really wish I could go back to the 50s when men were men and women were women and trans people didn't exist. Like, there are a certain group of people that definitely, and I don't really know anyone like this in real life, just to be clear, but it's like, there's trad wifing, like the alt-right, like trad wife people that are like, I want to be a homemaker. I want to go back to the way things were. And there is sort of this very ultra-conservative, typically very religious like side of the spectrum that likes to go back to like remembering the 40s and 50s because that was before all these people we don't like had equal rights to us. And like they use going back to that time period in their behavior and their relationships because it's like a white supremacist thing basically. But then sometimes it's also just like, I really liked watching I Love Lucy and now I have a fetish for women in stockings and I'd like to have that in my relationship, please and thank you. Like it's like so amazing how things can be like so superficially similar but come from entirely different places mentally and have entirely different motivations behind them. So it's kind of interesting how there's like the trad wife version of wanting a 1950s roleplay and then there's the like, well, you see the thing is that I am trans and queer and my partner is trans and queer and we would not have been allowed to exist and probably would have been murdered if we were openly doing our stuff in this time period. So part of taking back our power maybe and feeling in control is like role playing in this time period and subverting all those expectations. And I think that's something that happens a lot with many different types of role play, but in particular 1950s role play is definitely a big one. Things like ABDL, DDLG, CGL, anything like that. A lot of people use those forms of role play to kind of rewrite a narrative and rewrite history in a way that they wouldn't be able to in real life, and kind of use it in some ways as a healing tool potentially, not always necessarily, but like it can be used that way. And I just think it's really interesting. So basically, the point of me saying all this stuff is that I want to acknowledge that, like, looking back on it, I know the way that I talked in that video, like, maybe made it seem like I thought the 1950s was, like, this rosy, like, really perfect time period that everyone totally had fun during. And what I was trying to communicate is, like, this is the reason why people who do this kink say they do it, which is what I usually am describing when I'm talking about why do people enjoy this kink? Why would you want to do something like this? And everything that I saw looking onto why people like this role play all said very similar things about like simpler time, you know, more concrete roles in society, having comfort in those more concrete roles. You know, all that stuff like really came back into why people like that, but it doesn't necessarily mean that I think that that time period was better because of those things, to be clear, just if there was any confusion about that. And obviously different people are going to have different memories or different thoughts about that time period, either very positive or negative. And with any kink, with any form of role play, be that medical role play, pet play, age play, 1950s role play, pirate role play, anything like that, you can either like it and want to do it and enjoy it, or not like it and find it kind of gross and don't understand why people would be into it, right? Because If you are somebody that, was really seriously injured by a doctor, for example, and you had to go through a medical malpractice lawsuit and, you ended up with a permanent lifelong injury because of something a doctor did to you, you might not find doctor and medical role play to be particularly hot and not something you would really enjoy other people doing. Similarly, although not necessarily the same, I think this is like on a much higher level. Like, you might think it's inappropriate for somebody to role play having a 50s style relationship because you think that that is like getting too close to like some white supremacist trad wife like sort of ideology, and that's also totally fine. Doesn't necessarily mean what the people that are doing the role play think they're doing. You're allowed to find it inappropriate. Other people are allowed to enjoy doing it. Anyways, I realize I have been ranting about this for a minute, so I should probably read some comments about this. And then I'll have to go back up in the chat, I guess, for a little bit. Subverting expectations and reclaiming previously hurtful things can be so important to trans people, but not a lot of people talk about it. Oh, yeah. I mean, I think that happens for people across the board of experiences, be it trans people, be it people of color, be it people that are part of other minority groups, be it women that have maybe suffered violence, like anyone that suffered violence, actually, for that matter. Like, I think there are a lot of things that we can do that involve like subversion and reclaiming things for us, and that can create a lot of divide between people who, I don't know how to say this exactly, because I'm gonna talk about this. I'm gonna say I feel like I shouldn't have an opinion about this because I'm a white person. But for example, in a lot of conversations about race play, you have people that are like both women of color that have completely opposite opinions about it. You have women of color that think anything involving race play is disgusting and racism and no one should ever do it. And then you have women that are also people of color that love race play and find it very empowering. They find it to be a way to rewrite history and a way to like actually kind of make people confront their racist past and not forget about it, kind of. And so you have people that have very different opinions about whether or not something is appropriate or good to do, that have very different experiences of being involved with that thing. And I think both of those things can be true at once, right? Like, you can find something really disgusting and reprehensible, and you can find it really healing, and you can find it really helpful and reclaiming. I don't think either one of those is necessarily wrong. It's just about being able to accept other people for where they are at and choosing to be involved in spaces that are in alignment with your values in regards to those feelings. So, like, if you're somebody that thinks it's disgusting and you never want to be around it, don't be around it. Don't support places that have it. If you want to be around it, if you find it empowering for yourself, be in spaces that agree with that, I just feel like that's the easiest solution, Yeah, there's a lot about the 50s that's cool. There's a lot about the 50s that's bad. It's 50-50. I read it out loud and then I got it was a joke. It's true. It's like, well, what's really cool? We had like refrigerators, and not just ice boxes. It's really cool that we had all these, like, that's when we start to see latex. That's when we start to see the development of a lot of like very like early like fetish stuff starts happening in that time period. Or not like, and I mean there's like fetish stuff that's happening like basically since the beginning of like when we could like actually take pictures of people. Like, there's definitely fetish stuff from like the 1910s and 1920s, but like in a more like concrete way that is like visually identifiable and like starts to actually form something of a community versus like one-off people with like photography studios. Like the 40s and 50s are when we first start to see like if you ever watch like Professor Marston and the Wonder Woman, like, right, like the backdoor clubs of like costume parlors and things where it's like a secret like bondage society or whatever, like that's when we start to see that and have it kind of be more concrete and labeled in a particular way. And so I find that to be very interesting because there is that like really strong historical connection there as well. Retrofuturism and Betty Page enough said. Yeah, exactly. And I mean, it's like, also, I think if you just like the aesthetic of the time period, like, how many different types of aesthetics are there at this point between Tumblr and TikTok, right, that we've made over the years? Like, normal core and soft core and cottage core and retrofuturism core, and I don't even know what else types of cores there are. I'm not even sure why they're called that, but they are. And I am sure that there is one for the 50s. Hey, Evie, what is your opinion about Kat's recent live stream about Sissies? But if you don't want to share your opinion, that is respected too. So I know that Kat did a stream talking about Sissies. I haven't watched the call-in show for that yet. I've only watched the initial part of it where she was talking about her own experience and opinions around it. And I talked about that on Patreon. Like, we listened to that. And I mean, I just think it really goes to kind of what I've been saying already tonight, which is I think different people are going to have very different experiences and opinions. I can't say that I've ever had a negative experience with like a sissy in a BDSM space personally to have any sort of anecdotal evidence one way or the other about it. I do think it is something though where, as I talked about in a video that I did a little while ago on like hot takes for BDSM, I think it is something that is worth like unpacking and figuring out where it comes from and like how to be conscious of that before you engage in your kink, which for the record is something I feel about like pretty much all types of BDSM. Like, I think introspection should be like your core first step for like most types of BDSM, because if you don't know why you are into it, if you don't know why it's appealing to you, like how do you make a scene based off of that? Because you could be into spanking and think, I think spanking sounds like fun, but if you don't like think about why that is, like it's really hard to make a scene just based off of like, I think I might like spanking. It's like, do you like it because of like the power and control element of it? Do you like it because of the sensation? Does it give you a sexual thrill? Is it a fetish? Like, if you don't have the introspection around your motivations, you're not going to have as fulfilling an experience. So I think similarly to what you would do with all types of BDSM, you have to have introspection when engaging in things like sissification, because if you don't do that, it's very easy to fall into things that end up like being offensive and crass. And I think I don't really want to police what other people do in private with like consenting adult partners, because that's just like a slippery slope you're never gonna win, really. Like, because there's always going to be something that other people find distasteful, that if you start saying, well, no one should ever be allowed to do this, like people just keep narrowing down the list of like what's acceptable even in private until like no BDSM is left, right? Because it's like, who gets to decide what's okay and what's not? Because like excuse me. Some people okay. Some people don't like pet play, for example, because they think it like replicates animal cruelty and that's inappropriate, or it's too much like bestiality. Some people don't like ABDL because it reminds them of pedophilia. Some people don't like CNC because they don't think that like rape should be a joke, or they don't think that anyone should be like role-playing sexual assault for fun. Like, you end up like narrowing down like what is like appropriate for people to do in private. And so I'm not like willing to make any statements about like, I don't think anyone should ever do this even in private, because like it just depends so much on the context and the negotiation and like all of that stuff that I'm not witness to. And also it's like a theoretical thing. Like, if it's like a particular instance of like, this is what the intention was, this is what the motivations was, like I could have an opinion about that, but in the abstract of no one for any reason under any circumstances should ever be allowed to do this even in private, I'm like, that seems a little bit extreme to me. But getting back to the point of sissification and sissies and stuff, I think anyone's allowed to find it distasteful. I think it totally makes sense that a trans woman, or any trans person for that matter, would find like sissification to be offensive, or would find it to be like distasteful or making fun of their identity in some way. I totally get that. Like, that's, I totally understand. But I think with sissification, there is this like other like layer to it, which is like for cis men, and I think a lot of people have the stereotype that all cissification comes from this place of like finding it to be humiliating to be dressed as a woman. But I think there's this other layer of it, which is the way that cis men are allowed, like, socially to express their masculinity is like this big. It's like teeny, weeny, teeny, tiny. And so I think something like cissification kind of allows an acceptable space to broaden the horizon of like what is an acceptable thing to do, even if it's in a very limited context, right? It's like, this is a place where it's like safe and reasonable for me to wear a dress, to wear heels, to wear pearls, to put on makeup, to wear a wig, to have a high-pitched voice, like whatever else. And that I'm kind of like compressing down cross-dressing and sissification into one thing, because Kat did that in her video as well. But like, I think there is room for it to be like beneficial and healthy, but then there's also room for it to be like negative and like hurtful for other people. So like, it's complicated basically is the answer. I don't think Kat's like wrong. I'm not even gonna say just. It's just like, Kat, I don't think Kat's wrong. Like, Kat's allowed to have her opinion. I don't have the exact same opinion as her, but I understand the logic and the feelings that she had that like has led her to the personal opinion that she's had. But like, I'm not a trans person. I've never had a personal negative experience with a sissy, so I'm coming at my perspective on sissies from a completely different place, you know? If there's a 50s fetishization, what about the other decades? You know, I think people kind of say 50s. I mean, I had a comment where you talked about this a little bit. It's like 50s, but then it's also 40s and also a little bit of 60s. Like, it's not just like 50s. Like, sometimes it's stuff from like 1942 and stuff from like 1962, right? So it's really like a wider time span than it might seem. But I really feel like that's the decade that gets fetishized. I think there are other time periods that get fetishized. For example, like Victorian roleplay is really popular. But the Victorian era was like, I mean, that's like the whole reign of Queen Victoria, who lived like a long ass fucking time. So it's like, do you mean like 1860s, 1830s? Like, how long was the Victorian era? Sorry, my like history background is suffering here. Personally, I like the Edwardian era. I'm a big Edwardian era person. Okay, I was almost right. 1937, all right, to 1901. Perfect. Excellent. We love it. So, Victorian era, roughly. Although obviously historians debate about like what constitutes the exact beginning and end of a particular era of time. But Victorian era, very long lived. That's like a much longer than one decade though, but a lot of people do fetishize like the Victorian era in particular, like especially for service stuff, femdom stuff, anything like that. A lot of people do enjoy that role play, but that's really the outside of like, I guess like a vaguely kind of medieval role play, which is like sort of the princess in distress, like captive kind of role play. That's the only thing that I've really seen a lot of that even gets close to something like a era like fetish thing. I kind of wonder though if the 80s and 90s might eventually end up being like a fetish role play time period. You just imagine people wearing like shoulder pads, like wearing shoulder pads for roleplay, and like having those like big like brick phones. That would be amazing, wouldn't it? Or what the Zoomers are gonna do. That's my prediction. Do you know of Miss LX or LEX? I actually don't know how to pronounce her name. I've never bothered to learn. So fun fact about her, I have never talked about her in public. But for some reason, she has me blocked on all social media platforms, and I don't know why. So, I don't recommend her videos. Like, honestly, if you want my honest opinion, I don't like gossiping about other YouTubers. My honest opinion, and like based on my impression of watching her videos, is she does not come across as authentic. I cannot identify why that is. I don't have any logical reason or inside information to tell you that she's like a fake BDSM person or something. The way that she talks comes across as inauthentic to me. I don't know why. I can't give you any logical reason behind that. It just, I get a vibe. And I got a vibe about Bake for Jay. I've gotten other vibes about other YouTubers that have turned out to be bad people. So I trust that gut, and I don't recommend people and don't subscribe to people that I don't, like, have good feelings about, you know? That's sort of my logic there. I don't know. Like, I don't know why she blocked me. That's, like, the one thing I'm like, why? I know, like, I've watched her videos on, like, Patreon live streams before, because, like, at first I was really excited that there was, like, this other channel that was another woman talking about BDSM, because I love it when there's other channels that talk about BDSM, right? Like, I like collabing with people. I just think having more people to talk about kink on the platform is good. I like people having multiple perspectives and more education, but I, like, could instantly tell. I was like, something seems off here. And I think part of it is why, and this, like, bothers me. I know I have ads in my videos. Part of that is, like, I can't help it. Like, YouTube will put ads on my videos even if I don't monetize them, because they take the ad money, which is ridiculous. By the way, if you didn't know that, YouTube does that. And then it wasn't just that there were ads in the videos. It was that, like, every video seemed to be a thing to, like, go to my email list, subscribe to, like, this thing on my other like, web page, like, buy my audiobook bundle of ASMR. It was like every video was like a way to sell a different service or sell, like, getting onto an email list. Like, it comes across very, like, in the same way that, like, POAs do a lot of things, like the pickup artist, like, part of YouTube does very similar stuff, where, like, every video they make is, like, a way to pitch an email list, a way to pitch, like, top 10 tips for getting her to text back, like, top tips for having an amazing first date. Like there's information in the videos, but then it's always treated as a way to sell something else. And, like, I don't know. That's the reason why I have the bad impression, I think, is there's something about the delivery, and then the, like, everything is a way to, like, sell, like, something else that makes me suspicious for some reason. And, like, hey, don't mind a hustle. Like, I have a Patreon, I get it. But, like, I don't know. It just feels different somehow. I can't identify. I don't know. Apparently I'm not allowed to have opinions about other YouTubers. They just block me without saying anything. I don't know. Yeah, I got a weird vibe too. I came into a video once and she was yelling about the nature of women, like, yikes. I don't remember any specific things that she said in a video where I'm like, oh, this is objectively wrong. But I find that, like, I've watched videos of hers before because I check in, like, every, like, once in a while, like, every 6 months. I'm like, oh, maybe she's changed. Maybe her, like, content is different. Because when I first watched her when she had, like, 2 videos or something, or, like, it was more than that, it was, like, 5. I was just like, oh, like, heaven forbid anyone judge me based on, like, my first 5 videos. Like, they're embarrassing, okay? They're not good. But still, I found there's, like, big blind spots a lot of times in information. Like, she'll talk about something as, like, because I think she has a video on 1950's roleplay, but it's only talked about from, like a DS household perspective, and not as, like, a scene thing, or not as a non-power exchange thing. And I'm like, okay, but you can do, like, these BDSM things, like, or like humiliation or something, right? Where it's like, okay, but humiliation isn't just a power exchange thing. It can also be like a just a regular, like, top bottom thing. It can be a sex thing. Like, I just feel like there's a lot of, like, facets that get, like, skipped over, and talking about it like it's only done this one way. And I think that's something I've picked up on as well, that I was like, okay. What? Last I saw, she was gonna live in a commune or something. Wait, I have questions. Wait, what? Like a BDSM commune? Because I kind of want to live on a BDSM commune. Not currently. I don't like people that much. But the dream. It would be nice to live in a village of 6 to 10 people that were all kinky. That we lived on a cute farm together. I could see that being a cute idea. I think I'd probably go insane after the first 6 months. But it's a cute idea, I feel like. Seduce any vanilla, that might help me. No, I'm not gonna go that way. I mean, I think that was, like, something I saw in the video title, so I was like, oh no. Because I have a very strong personal philosophy, and you guys know this. Like, I don't believe you can make a vanilla person kinky. Like, if someone is vanilla, they are vanilla. Like, you can find people that don't know they're kinky yet and need help discovering it and being okay with it, and that is different from somebody who's like, I'm vanilla. I've tried BDSM. I don't like it. I only watch vanilla porn. Like, I have no fantasies about BDSM. I've never read a BDSM erotica before that I've liked. Like, some people are just vanilla, and that's fine. And that's fine. I just think it's weird to, like, and I don't know if she's doing this, but I'm just like, I've used this as a springboard to talk about something else, to be clear. I just feel like it's weird to, like, even potentially encourage anyone to be like, ah, yes, if I do exactly the right thing, I can trick somebody into liking BDSM when they didn't think they would. Ha ha ha. I just feel like in order to have a solid BDSM relationship of literally any kind, be it very simple bedroom blindfold level stuff or like a really complex DS relationship, that has to start from like honesty and disclosure rather than like trickery and like foot in the door type bullshit where it's like, you didn't think you liked BDSM, but now I've trained you into only coming when wearing a blindfold, and so now you're my slave. Like, wait, what? Like, don't do that. That's not ethical. I just feel like if you want to do BDSM, like, do BDSM. Oh my gosh! Thank you, Chan Chan.
Donated $56. Hoping this helps you reach your goal for Bandit. Thank you for all you've done for BDSM education. You have helped me in so many wonderful ways. I was curious, what is a BDSM education goal, big or small?
Oh, it cut you off. Okay. I'm assuming it was like, what is a BDSM education goal you have, big or small? I don't know why it stopped playing. Oh no, I'm so sorry. Here, let me get Bandit, and she will be the reward for this. Partly. Part one of the reward. Hi, honey. You want to say hello to the people? Are you snuggled on your bed? Come here. Come here. Come here. Come here. Yeah, good girl. Thank you, honey. Hi. Yes, come here. I know, I'm dragging you. This is my little princess. This is my Bandit. Look, aren't we twins? Yes, we're twins. Okay. Hi, good girl. All right, so this is Banditi. Thank you so much again. I'm going to quickly tell the Bandit story I was going to tell. Then we're going to get back into talking about this and answering the BDSM education goal question. So I took Bandit to get groomed yesterday, and she looks very pretty. And the groomer, it's a grooming place I've gone to a lot, and she hasn't been since she hurt her leg. And so this is like the first time that she's actually had a proper groom. That's not me desperately trying to do something with a pair of scissors in the past, like, I don't know, 7 months or something. And so her hair is just like really, really grown out. And you smell so good, honey. You smell like vanilla and apples. Delicious. Vanilla and apples. So good. So she smells very nice right now and is extra soft. She's normally very soft, but now she's extra soft. So there's a Scottish lady, which is funny because her vet is also Scottish. And I'm like, how? I live in America. What's happening? So her vet's Scottish, and then her groomer she had today was also Scottish, and she like loved Bandit so much instantly. And she's like, "Oh, I recognize you from the pictures." She like recognized Bandit from, because they take like pictures of the dogs, and they like, I think they have like a, I don't know, like some kind of book in their system of dogs they've groomed before, so they can keep pictures of how they've groomed dogs in the past, which is kind of cool. So she recognized Bandit. And then she held on to Bandit and was like, oh, don't worry. I'm going to spend lots of time talking to her before I even put her in the tub so she's nice and calm. I was like, oh, my gosh, thank you so much. And then I came back, and there was a big, giant golden retriever puppy. Like, I knew he was a puppy because his paws were really big, and he had no control and only energy. He was, I don't know, maybe like 9 months and 10 months, something like that. Like, it's somewhere between, like, puppy and like a year old. And like he went up to me instantly because he was like blocking the front door to get in, and he just like went like this on my hand. Like he just like, he did that retriever thing they do where they just like put their whole mouth over something because they don't know what else to do. They just like, their brains are broken and all they know how to do is put their mouths on things. So that happened, and then eventually I went up and I paid for Bandit's groom, and I turned around and like Bandit was sitting with the groomer lady, and she was on the groomer lady's lap. And she was all snuggled in, and she was like, oh, we were just about to take a nap. She almost fell asleep. And I just thought that was, like, very, very cute. She liked it a lot. She was very relaxed. And she got a little chicken treat for being a very good girl. And the golden retriever puppy wanted to play with Bandit so badly. And I was like, the dog's tail alone could probably cause Bandit injury, and that owner didn't have any control over that golden retriever whatsoever. She was like, "Oh, sit, please," and the golden retriever was not sitting. Like, could not be controlled, could not be taught to do anything. Apparently, he was just so excited to be there and be around another dog. So she told me about how good she was, and she was very good. She was a little angel, and she asked me where I got Bandit. And she said that she really wanted a Pomeranian, and that everyone there is obsessed with her because she's such a good girl. And I was like, yes. She's very happy. She's a very good girl. Look at this smile. Very good baby. We do have to go back to the doctors, though. We have to go back to the dog doctors. You're not going to like that as much as the groomers. And she's not a very big fan of the groomers, but she likes it more than being at the vet. I will say that. So, positive grooming experience. She is all clean and ready to go for the holiday season. And she smells like vanilla and apples, and I love it. Hi. What are we doing? What are we looking at? I love trying to figure out what she's looking at on my desk, because she just, like, stares. I don't know if she even realizes that she's on the computer. Oh, goodness. Okay, so, the question... Thank you for allowing me to talk about my dog. The question, do I have any educational BDSM goals? So it's really funny you ask that, because I have a video that is coming out pretty soon that I am doing about, like, kinks that I still want to learn about that I don't really know a whole lot about. So I don't want to completely spoil that video. I think the next big thing that I really want to learn about that I think is, like, something I could reasonably obtain even not being around other people and being able to learn it directly, like hands-on, would be like leather care stuff. I recently got a vintage leather dress from a really famous fetish designer. It was just like a completely random, super lucky find on like the vintage part of Etsy. And it's a leather dress. It's from a Canadian shop, actually. It's called Northbound Leather. It's one of the only manufacturers that's still open that produces like fetish clothing in leather for women. Mr. S used to have a Mrs. S line that's been closed for a while. Stormy Leather has been closed for a while. There's other stuff, but it's not like high end and it doesn't come in custom sizing. It's like there's like cookie leather, etc., but nothing like Northbound Leather. So I found a vintage Northbound Leather piece from the 90s, and I'm so excited about it. There's a little bit of wear and tear on it, and I think it's something that I could easily learn how to treat on my own, but the only sort of leather care stuff I've really learned about is boot blacking, and that I feel like that has to be different from clothing, because like this is a dress that has a lining, it has all these seams in it that are like different, it's lambskin, so it's probably a different leather than most like leather boots. So I want to know how to take care of it, because obviously like buying a vintage like leather piece, because that's like how I would prefer to buy my leather if I'm going to buy it, is like not contributing technically to other animals, you know, vegan principles and all that. I want to be able to take care of it so it does last for even longer. And I want to know how to do that. And I'm pretty sure I could learn how to do that online, but I don't know where yet. So that's like kind of my main goal. 90s and vintage. Listen, if it came out in 1990, it's 30 years old. So don't know what to tell you. It's vintage. We had a Pekingese Border Collie mix. How does that even happen? What is that, like just a really big mop? What is that? Her name was Princess. That's amazing. I love it. Princess the mop. I know, I have trouble like remembering that the 90s are like older, but they are. Like, it's crazy. I mean, it's not like that vintage. Like, not a lot of vintage places will carry 90s. Like, usually most vintage places stop at like 80s for like true vintage, but technically 90s is vintage, technically speaking. In my mind, at least. So getting back to the conversation about the 1950s. Rebecca said, I will say the 1950s discipline photos are one of the first things I ever saw when I started looking into kink. So this is like baby's first topic. I love it. Okay. I don't know why people attack YouTubers for not portraying their thoughts exactly. I mean, I have trouble with that, but I sort of take that as like the bias of being a YouTuber and knowing what it's like to film a YouTube video. And it's like, it's kind of like, I don't know what even to compare it to, I guess, but the thing that comes to mind is like, it's like submitting your first draft of a paper for review. Like, you have an idea of what you want to communicate. You hope that you've communicated your idea strongly enough, but sometimes you haven't. But then you don't get to have a second draft because YouTube doesn't let you, like, re-upload videos to the same video, like, URL. Like, once a video is live, it's just there, and you have to either do an apology or, like, have a conversation about it again. And I think there's always going to be differences about how people choose to phrase things or prioritize things as well. And I find it really interesting. Like on Twitter earlier today, there was, I guess there's a new TV series, that's come out, and it's called like The Sex Lives of College Women or something. I don't know. It has like a really cringe title, but there was like an out of context quote that came from an Indian American actress, I think. And the quote was like, Black women experience being overly sexualized, but brown women experience the opposite, which is not being sexualized at all. And for like some reason, like Twitter was really mad about this quote. Now the actual like context of the quote was they were doing an interview with the whole cast of the show, and immediately before she said that, they were talking with one of the Black actresses from the show. And she was talking about how, like, you know, her experience of growing up was being overly sexualized. And so being on the show was rewarding because it gave her an opportunity to sort of represent something she didn't see in media at the time, which was, like, rather than being, like, super, I don't know what she said. I think it was, like, being, like, super, like, voluptuous and confident and whatever else, like, getting to have sort of, like, messy, complicated bedroom experiences as a young Black woman, which wasn't something that she saw, like, growing up that she felt she would have benefited from. And as, like, a response to that, the Indian American actress, like, added on that, like, oh, yeah, like, I'm hearing that, like, experience of being overly sexualized and, like, as in, you know, a brown person is what she said. I am not sexualized at all. And so getting to be in the show talking about, like, and getting to show, like, you know, a young woman in college having a sex life, which is something I did not see at all as, like, a positive for me. And it's, like, interesting because it's, like, I just feel like, was the phrasing perfect? No, but it was like a live interview that was probably done over a tape recorder or something. And you don't get a do-over when you do that. Like, once you've said it and it's in the room, like, the reporter is just gonna, like, be like, cool, I have a quote now to use. And it's not even like YouTube or Twitter where you get to delete it and, like, rephrase it or, like, do a pinned comment and say, this is what I meant. Like, it's like, you say it once and you don't think about how other people are gonna receive that outside of that space. And then people get, like, really upset about it. And I don't think it was, like, her intention to say that, like, you know, Black women deserve to be sexualized or it's good to be overly sexualized. It was just, like, bad phrasing. And everyone got, like, really mad. And I'm like, I don't know. Are these people mad today because, like, that's, like, in the energy? Or, like, what's going on there? You were standing on me. What are you doing? Sneeze on my face? That's very rude. So, yeah. I do see a lot of people that get sort of very and I wouldn't say that anyone in my comment section, like, attacked me for the record. I think everyone, and this is true for almost all my videos with the exception of the video I did about Blair White, to this day I still get comments in my videos about Blair White and the one I did on Belle Delphine from, like, random Sims who are finding those videos, like, a year later that are, like, either in the case of Blair White being like, Blair's right, all you snowflakes are too sensitive, trans dogs are offensive to the trans community. Or in the case of Belle Delphine being like, you're just jealous because you're not as sexy as she is. You wish you could make money on the internet with your body. Just, like, remembering these comments are just so ridiculous. Like, I just can't. I don't know. Like, they're just so funny. I get people to leave weird comments like that on those older videos. For the most part, everyone's really nice. Everyone, I think, was really nice and, like, staying like, hey, you know, I come from this background and I don't feel like the 50s were like a fun time. And so I feel like this video is off the mark. And like I get that because that's also true. And I think if I were going to like go back and like redo that video, I think I would have been more explicit, maybe either in that part of the video or like later on towards the end, being like, I think I sort of expected that I got that across because I talked about like role subversion with like female heads of household and like queer and like trans participation in like 1950s role play. But to make it really explicit, I would say like this is very much based on like the white suburban like middle class experience of the 50s, which is obviously very different from the reality that many people lived through. And for that reason, many people could potentially find this to be like offensive or distasteful or just not their kink. And that's totally fine. You don't have to like this. Like I would just make it very explicit, something to that effect, where it's like, hey, recognizing this is going to be different for different people and not everyone has to like that. And that's what I would do basically. Wait, wait, what does that say? Alti White? Who is that? I've never heard that name before. Should I be afraid? Should I be scared? I don't actually think that Belle Delphine's vanilla. I have some like background information about that I'm not at will to just, or not at, what is the phrase? Not at liberty, not at will. I'm not at liberty to disclose that information. Pretty sure Belle Delphine's not vanilla. But I do think she started, like, I think there's, at one point in time, I don't know when this is, I think there was a transition in Belle Delphine's content for herself, like, mentally. And, like, she made a transition from just, like, trolling and putting googly eyes on octopi to, like, I'm actually kinky and I'm making, like, kink-adjacent, like, kind of clickbaity porn content. And I don't, like, not just, like, my just random off the top of my head like impulsive thought. I think at one point mentally there was a transition for Belle where her thoughts about her content and her perspective on kink changed, but I don't really know when that was. Love your title, House Spouse, you gave in that video, solid gold. Somebody told me that, like, they got kind of upset. They were like, you didn't invent the term house spouse. It's been around for forever. And I'm like, I've never heard the term house spouse before. But if you can point me to where somebody's used the term house spouse before, I would love to know. Because if I am taking credit for something that I didn't invent, I would like to know. So, I've never heard where anyone else has used it before. Oh, Stepford Wives. You know, I know about the term Stepford Wives and, like, in the way that it's, like, I don't know, allegorically referenced. Like, I've heard it referenced before, but I don't really know anything about the Stepford Wives enough to, like, commentate on it in, like, a video or in, like, a roleplay context. But from what I've heard about it, I think that does make sense. Okay, I'm definitely going to look up who is Alti White, because or that could just be alt-right. I don't know. The names are freakishly similar. Maybe it's just... Where did it go? I'll look it up later. It just popped off of the bottom of the chat, so I can't actually see it anymore, unfortunately. But I will find it later. LO says, hi Evie, you're such an important part of my kink journey, and I am so thankful for the work that you do. Education in kink and BDSM is so important, and you have helped me a lot making that info accessible. You are so welcome. Thank you for being here. That is my goal, so I have succeeded. Which makes me happy. I don't know why people allow me to speak the English language, because clearly I'm not fluent in it in any way. I'm such an embarrassment. I'm sorry. When you click dislike, you get a notification saying your feedback has been shared with a creator. Wait, what? Really? Does that does it send you like an email, or is it like a little pop-up message that says like your feedback has been shared with a creator? Somebody took the time to program that in. That's amazing. Wow. Exactly. Most people are after the pulpy retro aesthetics and media-generated imaginary nostalgia rather than anything else. There should be some vigilance for traditionalist abusers trying to weasel into the space, though. Yeah, I think you might have mentioned that on the video. I think you'll have to comment about this. Forgive me if I'm misremembering. But I don't know if I said this before or after you left this comment. But I very much think that whenever we have spaces in kink where there is that potential for like white supremacist ideology or sexist ideology or what have you, because they oftentimes go together, to get into BDSM, we need to be very cautious around it and like pay attention to the people we're elevating in spaces and like the people who are especially teaching and taking on leadership roles, because I think obviously 1950s role play, military kinks, things like that can all be done in like a healthy and productive way that is fulfilling and enjoyable. But if you're like a hardcore trad wife, alt-right shithead that thinks that women need to be women and men are men and trans people don't exist, and also that the white race is superior and we need to preserve a future for a homeland and white women or whatever the fuck, like you gotta be careful, because people think that, oh, the kink community is so woke and it's so progressive. Like that would never happen here. Like meanwhile, in my local community, like I live in a fucking city. I live in Seattle. If you guys don't know that, it's my P.O. box, so you guys will understand that I live in Seattle. It's not a secret. I live in fucking Seattle, a city that is so terrifying to conservatives that they now invoke it on conservative news media like Fox to invoke the image of riots, of Antifa riots. They say, but in Seattle, they say, because it's obviously a communist hellhole here. I regret to inform you it is not. They will invoke it that way. Even here, we had a local educator that was ousted, for he had like a collection of t-shirts, I think, which signaled his membership to certain ideological groups, let's say. And he had and he was an educator. He had a particular way of talking about certain genders and certain groups of people, and his ass got eventually kicked out of the community, but it took years. It took years. Oh, honey, you're so sweet. Oh, you're such a good girl. I love you. You're a good baby. And like even that happened in a places like liberal as where I currently live. And so in other parts of the country, even, I think you have to be more like wary. Although I think if they're really, really far right, like if they're like one of those hardcore like religious alt-right people, like they're probably not gonna integrate into a BDSM community because they probably find the whole thing to be like disgusting and reprehensible. But for certain segments of that ideology, it probably would be like worthwhile in their minds to do so, or even if not as like a psyop thing, right? To, you know, just be like, oh, hey, this is like a safe place to express these certain views, because if people say that I'm not allowed to say this, I can just say it's kink shaming. And for the record, saying that somebody being racist is not good is not kink shaming. By the way. Because having racist ideology influence how you do your kink is not good and not something that I want to be promoted. Like that's also, because this is another thing about like the 1950s topic, is there is sort of another, because I've talked about like trad wifery and stuff. So there's other like overlapping area, which is Christian, usually domestic discipline, or CDD, not to be confused with CCD, which is what I did when I was a kid. Any fellow Catholics, you know what's up. I am familiar with Christian domestic discipline. I explicitly avoided talking about it in the 1950s video because, and maybe at some point I will talk about this, it's a fucking minefield. One time I made like a comment as an aside about it in a video, and someone got crazy mad at me, like left like a fucking 5-paragraph essay in my comment section about how I misunderstand religious people and Christians can be into BDSM and domestic discipline isn't violence and blah 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 blah. And I'm like, listen, all I know is that the front runners of people who represent things like Christian domestic discipline are generally more weighted towards the side of people that think that it's okay to beat your wife because God said so, as opposed to having a consensual marriage based on the belief that the genders are inherently equal and that you can negotiate for having a difference in equality, let's say, but that starts from a place of believing your partner is equal versus believing that God made woman to be subservient to man, and having a godly Christian marriage means beating your wife into submission because you are the spiritual head of the household and the representative of God in the home. Like, I feel like that starts from a very different place. And if you can't see your spouse as your equal and as someone that is equally worthy of respect and consideration, like, how do you have a healthy kind of DS dynamic, any kind of healthy relationship like that, when you're doing it because you think that it's like the power that God has vested in you as the man, and it is your spiritual duty to act in this way towards your wife and children. Like, and I know that there's a lot of women that go to their husbands to start domestic discipline relationships. I know that a lot of women start it. I know that a lot of women enjoy it. And it does obviously exist on a spectrum, anywhere from like wife beating is good actually to like the other side, which is like Christians that are really insecure about their fetishes and think that in order to have a godly marriage, they have to pretend that what they're doing is okay in the Bible, and that like, actually, it's okay that I want you to tie me up and give me spankings because actually this is where the Bible says it's fine to do that. To where they are basically just doing consensual BDSM, but like they are worried enough about what God thinks that they're justifying it with the Bible versus like, again, believing that women are inferior beings to men and acting on that in their relationship. Because I don't, outside of any religion, I don't believe in any kind of gender supremacy or like race supremacy ideology. Like I think in order to have healthy BDSM, you have to have a belief that the people you are playing with are like just have an egalitarian approach to doing things, right? You have to believe that the people you're playing with are equal to you, or the people that you have relationships with are equal to you, regardless of race, regardless of socioeconomic background, regardless of gender, anything like that. You have to believe the people that you are with are equal to you, and regardless of why you believe that there are differences in that, be that religious, be that political reasons, whatever else, like if you're starting from a place where you believe that I'm better than this person and so they have to be my submissive, they have to be my slave, like, how in that context do you not have like coerced consent? Like, how are you able to revoke your consent in an environment where it's like, well, I deserve this because God says that woman should be the helpmeet of man, and that being passively supportive and doing whatever he wants is how to have a happy home and raise godly children, and so I just have to endure this. Like, I don't even want to get anywhere near endorsing that as like a good way to approach your BDSM relationship. Also, a lot of people that do domestic discipline, even though it can resemble 1950s relationships, which is why this person brought this up, they don't usually consider what they do to be BDSM because it's in the context of like a heterosexual Christian marriage, and therefore it's okay. But if you do it outside of marriage, then you're a hedonist that deserves to go to hell. So just remember, a wife can be inferior to a husband, but only when you're married and you live together and you're Christian and you're raising children together. Otherwise, doing the same thing is hedonistic and will send you to hell. Make it make sense, please. I don't get it. Yeah, spot on. An egalitarian approach is crucial. Otherwise, it isn't really play. Also, if the fear of a magic, omnipresent, immortal is making you do a thing, that can't be consensual. I mean, I guess the idea of God is the ultimate coercive element here. That seems messed up. I mean, and again, I wanted to emphasize, I know a lot of like Christian women, because there's tons of comments and stories about this on like every blog you read about this. That's like, you know, as a wife, I want, you know, have domestic discipline in my marriage. And it's like, oh, I get it. You want to be submissive, but because of your worldview, you can't like ask for that. So you have to do it the God way. Got it. All I'm going to say is, why isn't Girl Defined teaching us how to have godly BDSM marriages? Why aren't the Christian influencers telling us how to have kink in our marriage? Because clearly it's necessary if we want to have this worldview of women being the helpmeet, you know? Are you spiritual? No, I'm a lapsed Catholic. My opinion is that I think human beings have limited senses, right? Like, there's a fucking shrimp that lives in the ocean that like can see 16 more colors than we do. How can we be God's chosen creatures or be the result of some kind of divine benevolent force if there's a shrimp in the ocean that can see more colors than we can? Like, it just seems like a cruel joke. It just seems like a cruel joke to me. So I just feel like humans don't have the sensory information or like the processing ability to understand God or the divine if it were real. Like in sort of like a cosmicist sort of like Lovecraftian way, and that like, you know, trying to interpret the divine, if you were ever confronted with it, would probably just melt your brain. And so I feel like it probably doesn't exist, but even if it did, we probably wouldn't be able to detect it. And then even if we could detect it, it would probably destroy us. So that's sort of my logic there. Because if you think about it, like, I watched something where Neil deGrasse Tyson was talking about, like, life on other planets. And like the way that human speech works is very unique, and like the way that communication on Earth in general between species and all species, and the way they communicate with each other, like there are sounds that dogs can hear that we can't hear. Like there are colors that shrimp in the ocean can see that we can't see. Like how are we supposed to understand if what we're witnessing and experiencing is some kind of divine presence? I don't know. Just seems like we're missing some senses of information there. But literally, if you were to go like one standard deviation away of like communication, like speed, like being quicker or being shorter, we would not be able to perceive what other species were trying to communicate to us. Like even if we could contact them, if they communicated on just on a different scale of speed, we would not be able to understand them even if we were around them. And that's like crazy to think about. Tarantulas have a specialized cell in their corneas for identifying the color cobalt? Wait, like the element cobalt has its own color? If so, why do they need to know that color? What are the tarantulas doing? Are they building SpaceX stuff? What do they need cobalt for? Wait, is cobalt in SpaceX stuff or Tesla stuff? I don't remember. For addressing power differentials to be as egalitarian as possible, what are some good tips? For example, age, career, position, gender, fame, etc. So I have 2 videos that I've never published yet that are talking about how to have like ethical, like age gap relationships, and I talk about that in there. But basically, but cobalt is also like an element, and so that's why I was confused, because I know cobalt blue is a color, but then also it is an element. So I don't know if the element is like identical to the color. Does that make sense? Am I stupid? I don't know. I will never look at tarantulas the same way again. I mean, I didn't really look at tarantulas in particular in any sort of way, but now I have another fact about them. I'm not really a spider person. I know that's like kind of weird. I'm not really like a spider, like a creepy, crawly sort of a person. I'm not like, I don't hate them. I'm not like afraid of them or whatever. I'm like afraid of mice. I just like dogs. Like I like dogs, okay? That's what I like. And bunnies. I like bunnies. Bunnies are nice. I like bunnies. Yes. You're my little bunny. You're like a little bunny. You're more like a squirrel, actually. If you probably got lost, maybe the squirrels would adopt you. But you can't climb trees. They probably wouldn't adopt you. They think you're a little injured baby squirrel. You know, so sad. I am too smart, too curious, exactly. Welcome to us talking about the color cobalt blue and tarantulas. A very on-topic discussion related to 1950s roleplay. Somehow. Don't know how we got here, but we're having a good time. So, you know, thanks for joining us, I suppose. I should get back to some more questions. What do you guys think? That sounds like a good thing. Evie, when you say computer paper, do you mean the folded, perforated, continuous paper? No, I mean the white paper sheets, but I see what you're saying. Ooh, Christmas LEDs in the shape of a tree? Good idea. I like it. Yeah! I have another plug-in over there. I could hang something on the wall, but the cord would be visible, so have to have a plan for that. Ooh, a holiday wreath? That's a good one. I like that. I know it has been a whole year. I mean, I'm having mental things about remembering that it's been a year because Christmas and January, February last year were not fun for me. But we're gonna not talk about that. My mental health. It is a thing that is happening, isn't it? Mental health is, in fact, happening for most of us. On a more serious note, I saw your video on Club TG in... I know how to pronounce this, but I'm kind of traumatized by how many people got mad at me for how I pronounced this. So I'm afraid to say the name of this city. Which is funny, because I could pronounce the name of a lot of, like, English cities, but for some reason this one just, like, messes with me mentally. It's... Like, I know it's, like, Birmingham, right? Like, I know how to say Birmingham. Like, I know it's not Birmingham, which is the way you would pronounce it if it was the city in Alabama, but I know it's Birmingham, or something like that, at least, my approximate American accent to it. Like, if it's the version of the Birmingham that's in the UK. But for some reason, I cannot say Edinburgh. Like, Edinburgh? Edinburgh? I can't say it, help me. Like, don't traumatize me for saying it wrong. But, like, everything else, like, other English cities, I can't actually pronounce. And I don't know why this one in particular, like Edinburgh, like there's also Scarborough, which is, like, I think also a city in Canada. And I know it's also in the UK as well. And so I'm like, wait. I don't know how to say any of these. Like, it is the specific, like, the burg or the borough, like, the add-on at the end of the word that, like, messes with my brain for some reason. And I don't know why. But anyways, getting back to the point of the comment, it made me sad you had a flawed time of a DJ at Club Antichrist in London. Do try the club scene here. I would love to go back to London, actually, and go back to the UK in general. I'm very sad that I had a bad time at Torture Garden. I understand it's, like, part of being in any type of club scene. I have heard about Club Antichrist. I do know somebody that used to, like, do vlogs and videos about going to that club. So I'm aware of it. I've seen pictures of it. But I think the drinking culture and the consent culture is just so much different than to what I'm used to being in the US and being in, especially the kink scene. That it's, like, very much kind of a culture shock to be in that space. And, like, the partner I was with at the time, he had been in the UK a lot. He lived in the Netherlands for a while. And when he had gone to the UK before, with another partner of his, and they had gone to events together, like, they had like occasional instances of, like, a drunk person wandering into a scene, or, like, a drunk person trying to interrupt them when they were doing something. But, like, nothing to the degree that I personally experienced. And I kind of wonder, going back now that I'm older, if that would be different in any way. Or maybe it's like what everybody that was from Scotland that was personally offended by that video would tell me, which is that I'm a dumb American that is a prude and doesn't like drinking and should get over it. That video was possibly a mistake. But I'd like to retry it again and hopefully have a better experience. Come on over to AC and have you guest listed. Well, I would love to. I don't know when I'm going to be traveling, especially because, like, with Brexit and everything else, I'm like, as an American, like, what does that mean for me? Like, what if I want to go to the UK, but then also back to the Netherlands? What if I want to go to France? What if I want to go to Spain? Like, how much of a pain in the ass is it going to be to travel if I go to the UK first, you know? I would love to go. After AMP recommended it to you, do you plan on watching Sex Education? I probably will watch it at some point. It's not on my, like, immediate to-do list. Here, I'm gonna let you down, sweetheart. Oh my gosh, we only have, like, half an hour left, by the way, guys. FYI. Time flies when you're having fun. but I don't have any immediate plans for it, but I think I will watch it at some point. It's just I've been watching Scott and Bailey, and I'm almost done with it. I'm on. Speaking of the UK, I've been exposed to nothing but Manchester accents for the past like 3 weeks. I've been watching Scott and Bailey, and I'm on the final season of that. So once I finish that, I will probably watch something else. Well, I watch an embarrassing amount of like British TV, by the way. I love 8 out of 10 Cats. I love 8 out of 10 Cats Does Countdown. I watch. Is it What I Like? No, that's the U.S. show. Um, the one that's hosted and they try to guess who's telling a lie and who's telling the truth about a story. Whatever that one's called. Mock the Week I watch as well. Have I Got News for You? Like I watch like every like panel British TV show basically. And I really enjoy it. I've never really been into like Doctor Who, for example. Like I've never been into like a lot of the really big like British media franchises, but for some reason the comedy panels are good. I like those. Is it called Would I Lie to You? Isn't that a US TV show? Because I said that, and then isn't there a US TV show that's about like the guy that's like the body language? I'm Googling this. Would I Lie to You? Okay, yeah. No, that's all with Rob and Lee Mack and David Mitchell, who's the best. We love David Mitchell. I love David Mitchell. I am convinced that David Mitchell and Victoria have some kind of BDSM thing going on. I don't even think that David and Victoria know that they're doing BDSM, but they are doing BDSM. So says I. So says I. Oh, and QI. And I watched a little bit of Nevermind the Buzzcocks. Oh, if you guys want a British TV show that's definitely kinky, Taskmaster. You can watch a lot of it on YouTube. It's a very fun TV show. Really, really good time all around. It has a couple seasons now, and if you like any of the other British TV shows, like if you like QI, Mock the Week, Nevermind the Buzzcocks, anything like that I mentioned, a lot of the people that are on those shows are on that show as well, because the UK only has 10 actors in it, and so they have to all be on the same programming, apparently. So Taskmaster is really great, super funny. Concept of the show is basically they have like a team, or a group rather, a collection of comedians. I think that has good alliteration to it. Collection of comedians that do wacky, insane things at the instruction of a man that's called the Taskmaster, and then he grades them on how well they do, and then they compare the different people on how well they perform. So it's like kind of DS, it's kind of public humiliation, it's funny, it's silly, it's a good time all around. I really enjoy it. What is the US show I'm thinking of? Maybe it's just called Lie to Me? Is that what it is? It is! Okay, so there's Lie to Me, which is the American TV show. Not to be confused with Would I Lie to You? Which is the British TV show. Completely different premise entirely. Well, we learn something new every day, lol. Oh my god. It is only because the UK has first dates. Fair enough. Anyways, now you guys know my British dirty secret, I guess. I don't know. Oh, goodness. Yeah, I know what Lie to Me is about. I watched it before, which is why I was confusing the names up. I know what it is. OMG, like class, they showed a video of a lawyer who weirdly mentioned his relationship with this lady. He would always say, "Yes, ma'am," to her. I looked at her for permission to speak. I was like, listen, there's a BDSM has to come from somewhere. And in the primordial soup of vanilla relationships, there are people that have what I would call like prototype or like primordial soup kink relationships, where if they decided to think about it consciously and actually engage in it as like a style of relationship, it would evolve into being BDSM. But because of just how they are as people, they sort of have naturally developed this particular type of dynamic. And I think that's really funny. Anyways, welcome to my primordial BDSM soup theory. bu- 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 bum. Scrapbook paper for snowflakes. Good idea. I got dominated a few days ago and it was the greatest thing I've ever experienced. Well, that is amazing. I'm very happy for you. I am glad that you had a good time. I don't know what theme song I'm currently humming. I think I'm just making it up. Yeah, it's interesting because like with Clay mentions like the 50s and impact play went together because belts are definitely used in interesting ways. The thing is that I in all the pictures I looked up for like advertisements, films, TV shows, like books from the era on how to have a happy home life, I couldn't find anything that wasn't spanking. It was all spanking all the time. Not with a hairbrush, not with a belt, not with a paddle, with a bare hand over the knees. Like hundreds of that over and over and over and over again. Like it's a very solid, this is what you do. Which I think is really funny that it's like so consistent because that like never happens anymore, right? Like everything's a trend that goes away really quickly. And I know obviously like in spanko culture, for example, which is people that are like really strictly just into spanking, like hairbrushes and paddles and belts are all like part of it technically, but like in the 50s media I found, and I'm sure that in the era, like, you know, it's like get the switch from the yard, get the belt, like I think it was used like by people, like I think it was like, because like I have family members that have talked about like, oh, you know, my parent would have me go get a switch from the yard to like beat me with if I didn't get my homework done or got a bad test grade or something. Like, I know that that happened in that time period, but like, it's not something that you see in the media, which is interesting because I kind of wonder if maybe there was some kind of recognition that like adding an implement made it like worse versus using a bare hand in some way. I wonder, like, if there was like a stigma where they didn't want to like visually show like a paddle or a belt or something. I'm not sure. What is your favorite 50s fashion? I mean, I just like 50s fashion in general. I do really like how we start to see like women in pants. Like I don't think this works for my body type personally. I love a good cigarette pant. That's my favorite. I like my like if not even necessarily wearing this for me, but like if I had like a female dom friend that I knew, like her in like a motorcycle jacket and cigarette pants, perfect. I love that. I think that one is just so powerful. It's amazing. But I kind of wonder like what else. Like I think because you see like wiggle skirts as well, or in that time period, I think that kind of goes into the 40s a little bit with the wiggle skirts. Maybe even the 30s technically. I'm actually not really a fan of 30s fashion. I gotta be honest. Like the bias waist and things are not my jam personally. I think what other fashion from the 50s I really like. I do like that more things were homemade. I think that's really cool. That more people had their own pattern books and like sewing knowledge to be able to make their own stuff, which is crazy. I mean, it would take a long time, right? But like you could make your own stuff. And even now, like there are people that buy and sell vintage clothing that have like handmade items from people that are still around that other people are still wearing that they made in the 50s, which is crazy. A cigarette pant. Am I saying it weird? Do I not know how to say the word cigarette? It's a specific cut of pant. So, I'm going to read to you the history of cigarette pants. Cigarette pants have high waists with wide waistbands, back zips, flat fronts, and are slim fitting through the legs. They have stood the test of time because the style is so flattering that they suit many body types, and they were called cigarette pants because they incorporated a side pocket for cigarettes. So now you know. Cigarette pants. The more you know. There is a really cute little shop that I like. I never buy anything from, but I like browsing. It's called Heart of Haute. It's like a handmade, like California, like vintage reproduction shop. Very cute. I never bought anything from it. I find that a lot of like retro fashion isn't like flattering as someone with a small bust. I don't know if that's just me. I just feel like they liked big bazungas in the 50s. Am I wrong? The 20s were the era for the flat chest. The 50s were not. They did not make flattering clothing for us women that were not blessed by God in that particular department. So I don't really wear a lot of vintage fashion, but I do admire it from afar, mostly. Yeah, WandaVision X style. The show was a blast from the past. I loved it. Yeah, WandaVision was really fun. I did like WandaVision. I do love the hair of the 50s. I gotta say, my hair is way too long now. I would not be able to have this in the 50s because it would not be able to hold a curl. My hair would have to be probably like this short. I have like down here probably at the most to be able to hold a wet set curl. I have done wet set curls before, but I just can't like be bothered to do it consistently. I'd like to do it maybe more in the future if I ever cut my hair shorter again where it's more manageable, because at this length it's like doing anything with rollers, because the hair gets so heavy when it's this long that it's a lot harder to like actually have it hold a curl because the hair itself like weighs itself down. Have I been making videos for 7 years? Well, thank you, Carly, if I have been making videos for 7 years and you're here. Oh my gosh, of course, yes. We love a good Christian Dior here. We love a good Christian Dior. The Dior nipped waist, the whole Dior new look, we love it. That I think is very, very nice. I do have a couple, I have like a couple of, there's a New Orleans boutique that's called Trashy Diva that has some, occasionally, not always, but they have some stuff that's very influenced by the Dior new look style. That's also very good. There was a fetishization for the 60s and early 70s and the late 80s and early 90s. I mean, I think there's always kind of like a 30-year delay on like fetishizing something, I feel like. Like, or there is kind of like a delay, right? Like, for example, in the 70s, there were a lot of so-called like Nazi exploitation films. You know, there were a lot of like pornographic films that focused around like a blonde haired like female like Nazi SS officer, like, for example. Like, that was a big thing in the 70s, like, and because like the cultural memory of like the war was like in people's memories, but far enough away to where like you could kind of play around with it in pornography, kind of, which I find interesting, because that thing is, I mean, it's around still, but like if you did something like that these days, it would be considered like totally uncouth. And like back then, having like sexy Nazi ladies in your porn was like not unheard of. It was not uncommon. It wasn't even like a fringe fetish thing. It was just there. Oh no! No, the chat has yeeted me to the bottom. I have lost questions. Oh no. Okay, well, we do only have 20 minutes left, so if you guys have not asked a question yet, now is the time to do it. Now is the time. I do love a good knit set. I do love a good sweater set. That's my dream. I want a nice sweater set, okay? That's it. Yes, She-Wolf of the SS. Thank you. I was forgetting the name of the thing in particular, and that's what it is. Does Bandit have the longer or shorter mouth of Pomeranians? I hear people prefer the shorter muzzle and ask for more money for them. She does have more of a what's called a bear face. So the breed standard for Pomeranians is a fox face, which is like a more narrow but longer muzzle. Bandit has more of a shorter muzzle. Not like a full bear face, but she does have a slightly shorter muzzle. We do love distraction. It is true. So is a 1992 Aston Martin a vintage Vantage? It is. In the same way that I guess James Bond in general is vintage. So Rebecca asked, do you have any tips for counteracting sub drop? I do. So Rebecca, your first line of defense is going to be aftercare. And obviously this is like kind of a retroactive thing. Like, aftercare is something you want to do after you do your scenes, and if you are doing it and you still have subs drop, that can happen. Because what aftercare does is it kind of lessens how severe sub drop can be, or if it happens at all, but it doesn't necessarily always entirely get rid of experiencing sub drop. You have to remember, it kind of depends on what's causing your sub drop as well, because if you are dealing with maybe sub drop from a very intense, highly emotional scene, like maybe something that had really deep role play in it, fear play, humiliation play, but wasn't necessarily physically intense, you're going to have to account for like more mental recovery versus like if you had a really long impact play scene, you did a ton of bondage, you have a ton of bruises, you know, you're really sore, and you have more of a physical recovery with your sub drop. Recovering from each one of those is going to be a little bit different, right? But in general, the guidelines are going to be make sure you're drinking lots of water, make sure you're getting enough sleep. This is a really big one. Like, your body repairs itself and like does all its resetting when you're asleep. So if you're getting like five hours of sleep after you do a scene, like for days on end, and you're not getting 8 hours, it's going to be a lot harder to recover. So take time to make sure you're getting your 8 hours, even if you don't get to stay up to watch your favorite TV show. I think it's worth the temporary sacrifice to get enough sleep. Make sure you are rested. Make sure you're eating good food, not just sugar, not just like comfort, junk food, fast food. Like, have good solid meals, good solid combination of fats, carbs, and proteins. Give your body all those nutrients that it needs to be able to physically recover. Taking some vitamin supplements might also help as well. Things like magnesium, iron, B12, vitamin D. Those can also be good as well if you're dealing with any sorts of deficiency, and especially like B12 and vitamin D this time of year is a good idea when you have the sun out. If you're like a full-on omnivore, B12 maybe isn't as big of a deal, but if you're dealing with lower energy levels, things like B12 and vitamin D can be helpful if your body's kind of like depleted those stores a little bit, and maybe you're feeling that in a more pronounced way because of the sub drop. Also, just taking time to relax and take care of yourself, not, you know, doing a BDSM scene and then doing stuff that's like really intense for the whole week afterward, having a bunch of really important meetings and presentations and conferences and, you know, after work events and other parties. Like, take time, slow down for a couple of days, play some video games, sip your water, watch some TV, you know, just kind of keep it low key. And that will give your body that time. It also needs to be able to reset a little bit better. But it is something that does just generally like take time and patience to work through. If you're dealing more with like bruises and soreness stuff, and that's like a little bit different. It's like different advice for dealing with that, which is not really sub drop, but is just like you have bruises to like recover from after a scene is done. Also, reconnecting with your partner after a scene I think is really important. Not enough people think about that, especially if it is like a casual play partner, somebody you met that night, like anything like that. if you haven't, or if you haven't done it a lot, like reconnecting with the person you played with and talking with them about the scene, how things went, like having that can also be really helpful as well. But if anyone else has any sort of other advice, other things that they would like to share, let me know. The more I learn about people, the more I like my dog. True. I mean, I don't hate people. I just really like my dog. So, you know. If you were to educate curious vanillas, how much or how little would you consider telling them without worrying about scaring them off? I.e., for you, how light is like BDSM light for you? I think if I was introducing BDSM to someone that didn't really know anything about it and I was like worried about scaring them off, I think I wouldn't even necessarily get into like the specific practices first. I would probably talk about like how it's a really great bonding experience, how it can be really pleasurable and affirming and healing for people, how it can just be overall really nice, kind of dispelling those misconceptions, scientifically about, the BDSM means that people have a mental illness or that, they're all like sadists and pedophiles or whatever. Like actually like talking about, the research that says, people that do BDSM aren't any more mentally ill than average. They have just as happy relationships. They have just as many long-term relationships as everyone else does. And I think that can be reassuring. And then I would get into more of the specifics of like, hey, you probably saw this in 50 Shades of Grey. And actually in the BDSM community, we do like this. Like I try to introduce things, I think, through media that people would already be familiar with, or like sharing media, for example. Because there's lots of different things that either have the implication of BDSM in them or talk about BDSM. So for example, like Professor Marston and the Wonder Woman has a little bit of kink in it, right? And that can be like a fun movie date night to watch that. And you can talk about like, what did you think about the bondage? What did you think about the costuming? And that can be a good way to start that conversation without being like, here's my BDSM porn collection, I think that's kind of a better way to talk about things, right? Like I would answer questions that people have as they come up about like, what's bondage? What does BDSM stand for? Like I would focus on like the consent and mutual pleasure like focus of BDSM over the like activities that are done in BDSM first. Like I would definitely talk about that second part, but for me, I think having that established base of like how it's ethical and why people enjoy it and how it can be good for both parties, I think that's like a really good solid basis to have for somebody that's like brand new. Oh yeah, that's right. Watch the Safer just came out with an awesome video about coming out as kinky too, which can help. I haven't watched that yet. I am very excited to watch it though. I don't know what necking means. I'm too asexual for this. Is necking like kissing, or is that kissing that's on the neck? I'm not sure how much it's slang for something. All right, I'm gonna zippity zap here. I'm gonna scroll through and try to find some questions. I know I'm probably not gonna get to everything, for which I apologize. But I hope that you all enjoy this. Okay. Edinburgh. Pronounce the final GH like you would teach a kid how to pronounce the letter R. Simples, LOL. I don't know. I don't think I'm getting it. Edinburgh. I guess it's just it. Is it just like a long R? Like Edinburgh? This is missing so many letters in there. It's like French. Get out of here. I don't like Jimmy Carr. I gotta be honest. He's not my favorite. He definitely gives me like sexist behind the scene vibes, but that's just me. I also don't find him particularly funny. Like that's just me though. What are your thoughts about negotiating sober for a scene while the sub is intoxicated? So even though I don't do BDSM stuff when I'm not sober, like I'm not a drinker, I don't do drugs or stuff, I think you can definitely, if you have an ongoing relationship and you know the person and you pre-plan it, I think you can negotiate a scene ahead of time when you are sober, where you agree to do things later on after you maybe have consumed some substances. But doing that, you have to be willing to accept the risk that things could go wrong and you might not be able to safe word, you might not understand a safe word, you might like throw up while in bondage because have a really bad mental trip when you're doing something. Like you can do it as long as you are kind of aware of those other factors that can add on to BDSM if you're doing it when, you know, drinking or other things are involved. But I don't say that to be like, go to a party and get wasted and play, you know, just do BDSM scenes on people you don't know. Like, I'm not saying to do that. Like, I'm saying somebody you know, somebody you have played with before, that you can negotiate with while sober, understanding that other things can happen that can go wrong when you do eventually play, and that revoking consent in particular may possibly be difficult when you are under the influence. But I think it is possible, and I know people do it. I am sure some people have a very puritanical view about never do anything ever while doing BDSM, and you know, people are allowed to do that for their own scenes, but I think there is a way you can negotiate around it. Because kink itself is like a mind-altering substance. Like, subspace can be just as mind-altering as being drunk or being high can be. So, like, we already kind of are messing around with brain chemicals while doing BDSM. It just is depending on how quickly they happen, I suppose. Let me see here. Oh, totally random. If too personal, no worries. If you could design a custom latex or rubber outfit, what would it be? Maybe 50s style? No, totally. So my favorite latex designer, well, it's kind of a toss-up. I really like both Atsuko Kudo and I also like William Wilde. And so I would probably, I probably would do some kind of like a bodysuit with like a corset, like 6-strap, like garter belt, you know, like a corset that's also has like garters attached to it. Like, I'd probably do that. Frankly, because also it'd be easier to put on, because putting on like a literal full body catsuit is, I don't know how you do it if you're not a contortionist. Like, I've done it before. Like, I've tried to try on catsuits and it's a nightmare, frankly. So I'm not a fan. But like bodysuits and simpler pieces, I do like wearing. So I'd probably do that. And then like some stockings, and then maybe like a cape, some kind of other accessory, maybe some gloves, maybe like opera length gloves. I don't know. I haven't thought about it enough yet. That makes me wonder if there are 50s DDLG mashup relationships out there. There definitely are, and both of the people that I know that do 50s relationships also do DDLG in their relationships. So the answer is yes. There is very much an overlap, which you wouldn't think, but I guess it makes sense. Like, I can see it. I don't think if you just listed those things like side by side for like what is involved in them, like you wouldn't think they'd go together. But it's kind of like peanut butter and banana, maybe. Like, you go, oh, peanut butter, banana. Those aren't really similar at all. And then you put them together and you're like, oh, I get it. Does that make sense? Oh no. I lost the chat again. Oh my gosh, YouTube is being so mean to me. It like doesn't want me to read all these questions. Do you like to wear leather outside of a scene, or do you just never wear leather on YouTube? I like dressing like casually for YouTube videos. Like I have like purposely chosen to wear a wardrobe of t-shirts for my YouTube videos, and like that's mostly what I wear. I do really enjoy dressing up, but I save it for like actually going out and like going to parties. Like I love wearing like full head to toe like PVC leather. Like I love doing that. And I love like I love coming up with really fancy outfits. I just like I can't be arsed to do it for YouTube because like you guys are seeing like this much of me at any given time. So like I'm not really bothered about making a fancy outfit. I'll just throw on a t-shirt and be comfortable. I think a vanilla could be changed by kink if they try it, or is it a case of allowing it to be tried? That fascinated me. So to clarify, I think there are people that are vanilla that know about BDSM that have no interest in ever doing it, that find it disgusting, and I don't think it's like okay to like coerce them into trying it because, oh, you don't know, you haven't actually tried it yet. How could you know if you like it or not? Like BDSM is a very intense experience, even if it's just impact play, light role play, tickling. Like if somebody knows they don't like it and they're like, I never want to try it, like don't coerce them into trying it. But if they're vanilla and they don't really know anything about BDSM and they go, oh yeah, maybe I could try that sometime, and they're at least like open to the idea, like I think you can introduce kink to someone that's like currently vanilla, and that can be a way for someone to discover that they are kinky. But when someone like is vanilla as opposed to just hasn't found out they're kinky yet, those are two different things. Does that make sense? Like actually vanilla versus hasn't had opportunity to know if they're kinky or not yet. Oh, thanks for coming back. We are just about to wrap up the live stream and literally probably one more question, but thank you for being here. Ah, yes, taken in hand, for sure. That is the other thing we have to worry about with 50s, is like domestic discipline, taken in hands, all of that. Be very cautious about the overlap there. My best friend forever is a 65-year-old, and she claims to be vanilla, but since I came out to her, she has asked to be vlogged a lot, lol. The only thing I will say about that is like a lot of people enjoy the sensation of being flogged because it can feel like a nice massage. And so it doesn't necessarily mean she's kinky, but I do think that's funny. It's like liking massages that make you kinky, you know? Okay. One more question here, and then we will wrap it up. Oh, thank you, Creative Authority.
Creative Authority donated $10.
Thank you. We appreciate it. Maybe that means I will answer 2 more questions. I don't know why I always want to say ask 2 more questions. I'm not asking questions. I could. What if we did a reverse Q&A? I just ask everyone else questions. No one would watch that. That wouldn't be entertaining at all. Oh, excuse me. Okay, I'm trying to like find where I was before. YouTube is just like not having it with the chat length today. It's like, you've said too much. Not prepared to lose half your questions. Oh, tarantulas use it to find their mates. Blue is a very rare color in nature, so it helps them more easily identify other tarantulas. I love that for them. Aww. That's so sweet. Long lost tarantula love. Best holiday song opinions. Feliz Navidad is like very nostalgic for me because I grew up in an area of the country that has like a really big, well, I lived in a lot of places, but I have a lot of childhood memories of when I lived in an area that had a really big Hispanic population and my best friend was Spanish. And like Feliz Navidad just has like happy memories for me. I don't know about the best holiday song though. Well, that's hard. I do like Marshmallow World. That's an obscure one. That's like for like a 50s, like 40s Christmas song. It's a marshmallow world in the winter. Like as soon as it gets to be Christmas time, I'm gonna be humming "It's a Marshmallow World in the Winter," and I'm gonna hug Bandit. I'm gonna tell her it's a marshmallow world in the winter because she's my little marshmallow. And my big marshmallow actually is a jumbo puff marshmallow. But that one I do enjoy a lot. All right. One more question. Who will it be? Oh, Silent Night. That's a good one. Oh, sorry to hear it, Rebecca got a skedaddle. Well, thank you for being here. I'm just going to wrap up in a minute. So, let's see what we've got. I have a long question for a Q&A vid. Okay, excellent. Okay, I'm trying to find this like one question and like I can't, like I see other people answering it and I can't find it. Oh, yeah. Okay. The hippo song. Oh, is that the one where like, oh, I want a hippopotamus for Christmas? Is that the one? Yeah, that one's cute. I don't actually know if it's called Marshmallow World, but that's the line from the song that I remember. So it's a marshmallow world in the winter. So okay, so masturbation, a little bit of a mess, cleaning up. So that is perfectly normal. Putting down a towel before sex or masturbation is completely common. I will say though, especially if you are like new to using toys or like orgasming in general, it is not uncommon to release fluid. That could happen for a couple of reasons. It could also happen because you're not used to using your pelvic floor that way. And so when you have a weaker pelvic floor, it's like harder to like stop your bladder from releasing fluid like as you're orgasming. So like as you do stuff more, or if you do like strengthening exercises for your pelvic floor, that can like help you not experience that if that's something that you're doing, or if you have like chronic pain issues or some other kind of issue with your pelvic floor, or like other like reproductive tract issues that could also be related to it, because if you have like weaker muscles in that area or like a lot of inflammation, that could also like contribute to it theoretically. Not a doctor, but something that I have seen a correlation with based on my personal research. So really normal, perfectly normal to have to put down towels, even when sometimes when I've tried new toys, even though I've like been masturbating for years at this point, sometimes when I try a new toy, like I will also like have to deal with that same issue. So it's like it definitely is something a lot of people go through. Perfectly normal. I know it can be like uncomfortable, in which case masturbating in the shower in a bathtub might be more comfortable for you as well. Also an option, which is why waterproof toys are a good idea. All right. Well, everyone, it is 8:06, so it is time for me to wrap up here and probably eat, actually. This is probably what I should do. Thank you all so much for being here, though. I really appreciate it. And yeah, that's going to be it for now. Oh, actually, you know what I'm going to do? I was doing some Christmas shopping. I'm going to finish that because it is going to be the holiday season before we know it. Gotta get ahead of those UPS delayed shipping times. Thank you guys so much again. Hopefully, if you guys haven't, please do check out the video I did earlier today with Pup Amp. We talk about so many things on there. If somehow you need even more content after these 2 hours of listening to me, and I will be back very soon with another video. Until then, have an amazing weekend and stay safe.